everybody. Welcome to the Rupa Subramanya Show. I am Rupa Subramanya. I hope you're all doing well wherever you're tuning in from. Today I'm joined by Chanel Pfahl. She was a teacher in the Ontario public school system who was suspended 2 years ago for writing a Facebook post in a private group criticizing the teaching of critical race theory in schools. It's my privilege to welcome Chanel to the show. Chanel, welcome to the show. It's a real pleasure to have you here with me. For people who don't know your story, could you tell us exactly what happened, the sequence of events that led to your suspension as a school teacher here in Ontario? And what is the current state of affairs? Are you still suspended and now able to go back to teaching?
Hi, Rupa. Thanks for having me on. I'll try to sum it up as quickly as I can. There's been a lot of different investigations that have happened over the last 2-3 years now. So it all started in February 2021. I had put my opinion on critical race theory in a private group for Ontario teachers. I can read you what I said if you like.
Yes.
Okay. So the whole comment, what I said, I have it right here. So I said, kids aren't in school to be indoctrinated with critical race theory. Schools should be nonpartisan. Focus on modeling kindness to everyone and speak out against any form of discrimination you see. This includes the discrimination brought on by anti-racist movements, i.e. saying that all white people are racist, etc. In some places, example Britain, it is now illegal to teach CRT without offering a balanced opposing view. So that was my comment. One of the teachers in the group reported me for it. A lot of them piled onto my comment telling me that I was trying to uphold white supremacy in our schools, or that I was I don't even know. It was a lot all at once. I ended up actually deleting my comment. I just left the group, and I thought to myself, I might have just ruined my career because I knew what kind of environment I was playing in. So the next day at school, I was handed a letter that told me that I was under investigation. I didn't know really what this was relating to, but I figured it probably had something to do with the comment. It did. A month later, they ended up suspending me for a week without pay. And then I kind of thought that whole thing was over. But almost a whole year later, the Ontario College of Teachers, so the regulator for all Ontario teachers, decided to investigate me for that comment as well. They took almost a year to decide that they were going to drop the case, and that they couldn't actually discipline me for anything I had said. I ended up just receiving a 2-minute oral caution, which just means them giving me a warning to basically stop being so controversial. Now there's another investigation that's ongoing. It's not about this comment now. It's about another Twitter post that I put up in the fall of 2022. So last fall, when I was running for school trustee, I posted about a school board initiative at the OCDSB, so the Ottawa Public Board. And it was about meetings that they were going to have with kids after school, Mondays and Thursdays for LGBT kids, Tuesdays for Muslim kids, Wednesdays for Black kids, something like that. And I posted about that, and they are now alleging that I gave access to whoever wanted to join these meetings, which I didn't actually do. So we'll see how that goes.
That's extraordinary. I mean, of course, I've heard this. You say this in interviews, and of course, we know each other in real life as well. We've had this conversation before. Your initial Facebook comment seems pretty balanced. And so what exactly was this official complaint about? Why were they pushing back? I mean, what upset them so much? Did they tell you what exactly they were they were anguished about with what you said, the original Facebook comment?
Well, apparently the allegation is that I was causing harm with this comment. I was causing harm to racialized groups, and a bunch of stuff. There's pages and pages of how horrible I was for putting this comment up. But I think what it comes down to in the end is that I questioned an ideology that can no longer be questioned. It doesn't matter how balanced you are, how, somebody could be new to this ideology and they don't really understand. Maybe they have a more traditional idea of what racism means. And to them, maybe racism is, when you treat someone differently or badly based on their race. That is a common understanding of the word. So they could come in and say, well, it kind of seems like some of these critical race theory initiatives are racist in and of themselves, because we're taking groups and we are putting them against each other. We're saying that it's okay to discriminate in some cases as long as it advances this group and not that one, and just different things. So someone could come in genuinely curious and get completely put down and silenced and ostracized. And basically what effect that has is that the next person is not going to want to voice their opinion at all. So it allows them to have full control over the ideas that are spread.
So Chanel, I mean, will I get you to explain to us what critical race theory is in a few minutes? But did you? I'm assuming you got an opportunity to make your case, and did you push back and ask them? What exactly are you guys objecting to? What are you complaining about? Did they give you a reason? I mean, to say that you were creating distress for students who are racialized. I hate that word because it puts all of us, people of color, in a category which I never consented to this, but yet I am. It makes me sound like I'm diseased or something, which I'm not. But what was this? What was the substance? I guess my question is, what was the substance of this official complaint? Why? What were the reasons behind why they were objecting to your post? What specifically were they objecting to? What did they say?
Honestly, don't have the letter in front of me. But I remember it being very non-specific. They didn't say exactly what the issue was with the comment. They just said that because of, they listed what I said, I would be suspended for a week without pay. Oh, and by the way, I wasn't allowed to step foot onto the school property or communicate with any other parents. So it was a really stressful time for me, because it was a time where I was teaching full time, and I had probably over 90 students in total. So I'm in communication with parents all the time. And I remember that night when I was told that I was suspended, I was supposed to meet with 4 different parents that night, or call them or whatever. And I wasn't allowed to even touch base with them and tell them that I wouldn't be able to go through with the meeting. So it had a pretty serious impact on my reputation, I think. But yeah, it never was really too clear what exactly was wrong with the comment, just that I wasn't supposed to make it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds as vague as claims of systemic racism sometimes, right? You really wonder what that is about. And I say this as a person of color myself. So could you explain to us what critical race theory is in layman's terms, and why do you find it problematic?
Yeah, well, critical race theory is basically an academic framework. It posits that the very structure of our society, everything is underpinned by racism. And there's this kind of lingering oppression in every situation, in every policy, in every interaction. So basically, once somebody becomes critically conscious, so they achieve this level of critical consciousness, they call it, they use CRT as a tool. And this tool allows them to detect racism, hidden racism, in every single situation you could imagine. So CRT is, although people will argue that it's this it's this legal theory that's only seen in universities and in law courses. The reality is that it has become a lens through which issues of racism and social justice are spoken about. It can be kind of brought into any discussion whatsoever about society because it's a way of understanding relations.
Yeah. And when did you, Chanel, wake up to the dangers of the woke turn in our society, especially in the public school system, where teachers are expected to teach CRT, whether they agreed with it or not?
Yeah, I actually woke up fairly late to what was going on. I was pretty much on board with this kind of stuff. I led the Pride Club at my school. I did all kinds of things. I didn't really see an issue with it. It's an ideology that's covered in very pretty language. It talks about being inclusive and kind and stuff like that. So it's hard to object to it, and especially as a new teacher, I think it's easy to just follow along. You see the other teachers doing it, and you assume that they know more than you do, and that this is just the way that it's always been. But the reality is, this is a new phenomenon, and I started to see it more and more to the point that it got kind of impossible to ignore to what extent it was affecting my teaching and just the school environment in general. I think one of the turning moments for me was the summer of 2020, right after the George Floyd murder and all those riots and everything. I had an old professor from Laurentian University who made a tweet, and he said that all lives mattered. And he didn't really understand, I guess, how politicized this statement had become. And anyway, he got canceled. And I remember, well, first of all, he was an awesome professor. I had such respect for him. So when I saw that happening, it really forced me to think about the impact this ideology was having and kind of what was happening to my friends too, because a lot of people in my circle were really against what he had said, and they deleted me off Facebook and things like that. So it made me just think about everything in a different way. I started listening to podcasts and reading books and all of that, and I realized that all of this was tied together in an ideology that was essentially subverting liberalism, and that was trying to take over in a really insidious manner. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a perfect point actually to get to my next question, and I'll get to that shortly. But it's extraordinary that you spoke up and you were essentially canceled. You were canceled. You were unfriended. You were derided by the community of school teachers that you belonged to. You were publicly criticized and shamed for this, but yet you continue to speak up. You refuse to remain silent, which is, extraordinary display of courage, in my opinion. I meet a lot of cowards in my profession, in my profession too, but I meet a lot of cowards, and it's just wanted to acknowledge your courage in continuing to speak up. Many teachers publicly criticized you, and no one came to your defense. You were literally left there fighting this battle on your own. Do you believe that those who didn't speak up were doing so out of fear that they may face harsh consequences? So, what does that really say about the state of public education, public discourse in our country?
Yeah, that's a great question. It says a lot about it. It says a lot that somebody can't even comment on my case at all, actually they could comment on it if they were criticizing me, I'm sure, but The ones that do support me, or at least maybe they don't even know much about the woke ideology stuff, and maybe their position is just that I should be allowed to talk and not be at risk of suspension without pay and losing my license and things like that. Maybe they just believe in free speech, and even then, they're not allowed to. Well, I don't think they would be allowed to defend me in that way and just say, look, I don't agree with what she's saying, maybe, but I just want her to be allowed to say it. They would probably get canceled too. I get a lot of support from teachers, but it's always people who don't want their name out there. And it's the same pattern over and over. There are a lot of teachers that I knew that deleted me off Facebook, as I mentioned. But a lot of them did stay there, but I still don't know what their position is because they refuse to they refuse to get involved in any way. I think it just speaks to the climate of fear that we've created.
Yeah, I mean, to do this to you in the middle of a pandemic, where, people, there's a lot of uncertainty about the economy, about jobs, and we're all like trying to deal with this pandemic, to try to cancel you and prevent you from an attempt to prevent you from teaching, and to rob you of your livelihood is quite, it's cruel, it's diabolical, it's just evil, I think, in my opinion. That too over a fairly innocuous Facebook post. The teachers who disagreed with you, are they? Where would you put them in terms of age and in background? Are they older? Are they mostly white? Are they are they mostly women? Just tell me what the give me a sort of a rough demographic profile of these people.
Well, it's hard to say with the group there. I didn't really analyze who was from what group and all of that. And also I didn't know those teachers in real life. But since then, I mean, I've have quite a good idea of the profile of your typical woke teacher. And usually it's somebody who is probably between the ages of 25 and 32. And they're generally white and university educated, of course. And this is just something I noticed over and over again, right? It's these white people who think that they are being virtuous by speaking up for somebody else. So that it just doesn't make any sense at all. As you pointed out at the beginning, it's like you as a person of color are being told what it is you can think or what you can't think. And we see this all the time. If somebody is Black and they speak out against this, they are told that they're not aware of their oppressive oppressed status in society, and they don't really realize it, but they're helping white supremacy perpetuate itself. And look, let us take the lead. You step out of this. We've got this. You're not aware that you're oppressed, but we'll help you out. And that's the most oppressive thing you can do: stop someone from talking for themselves and saying how they feel.
Yeah, false consciousness, right? And it denies the person, it denies that individual their agency, which is kind of ironic, given given the fact that the whole premise of this is that you're supposed to empower people and that sort of thing, but you're actually denying agency and false consciousness. It's extremely patronizing and insulting, to say the least. Here in Canada, I would say that in a matter of less than a decade or so, maybe 7 or 8 years tops, we've gone from a generally centrist and sensible place to having this extreme woke narrative across the board. It's captured our institutions. It's captured every facet of our society. It's our so-called liberal intelligentsia, and I say so-called because the positions they often advocate are illiberal. Do you have a sense of how we got into this mess?
Well, I think it started in universities for sure. And then, if all these young people in university, They go in there, they think, okay, well, the professor knows more than me, and I have to kind of stop myself from looking dumb, right?
Mm.
Like if there's a text that you're reading in your gender studies class and it's all these big words and you don't really understand what's going on, you're not going to, as a 19-year-old, you're not going to raise up your hand and say, look, I don't understand. You're going to feel stupid doing that. So you're just going to go ahead with it until you understand kind of what the aim is and what you're allowed to think, which is very obvious in those kind of classes. I've been in them. And you emerge from that with an understanding of what you're allowed to think, and then you can adopt those beliefs for yourself and push it on the next guys, and you get a sense of virtue from that, because look, you're fighting social justice, right? And you understand all these big words now. It's fun. You're in university, whatever. I think it starts with that. You get these university students that are now persuaded that being an activist in these kind of spaces is really important. And then they get their gender studies degree or whatever, and they have to go out into the world now. So what happens? Well, they bring their ideology, they start problematizing everything in their new workplace, and bringing in these ideas and sort of criticizing anyone who's not on board with it. And I mean, that's just one piece of the puzzle, but I think it's definitely a big one.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good sort of good explanation of how we got here. To what extent do you think that this is a fight between two sets of elites? You have the ruling elite, the ruling progressive elite, and those challenging them. Where does the average Canadian fit into all of this? They're busy putting food on the table. The economy, as you know, this inflation, this cost of living has gone through the roof. How engaged do you think that the average person in Canada is in these debates?
I don't think they're really paying that much attention to it. Like you said, they're focused on getting their next paycheck and food on the table for their kids and things like that. I think people vastly underestimate the level to which this ideology has infested every institution, including their child's elementary school, for example. They have an idea of what school is based on the education that they got 15, 20 years ago. And they think that it's an institution that can be trusted and should be trusted. And, a lot of these woke ideas that are coming into the school, they're not that obvious spot. You really have to know the language. You have to know what is going on. You have to spend time really learning about like the theoretical origins of it, and so that you can spot it. So it's like me. I mean, looking back just 3-4 years ago, I didn't know that all this was meshed together, and that there was some kind of larger picture goal to basically take down liberalism as we know it. So that's what I'm kind of trying to do, I guess, is to show parents what is going on in schools, so that those parents who don't necessarily have the time to look into every nook and cranny of this ideology can see little examples and start to question what is going on, and maybe ask their teachers, their kids' teachers questions, so that they can be more aware of what their kids are learning and more able to have conversations with their kids about it.
And what's that experience been like? Have you been successful in getting people to think about the issue, or even at the very least, engage in the debate? You're not, it basically, an individual will make up their own mind about, a certain issue, but have you been successful in even starting a conversation?
I mean, I think so. It's hard to say. I'm in contact with a lot of people, probably a couple every day, that message me. A lot of them are teachers and parents, and they're perhaps just learning about what's going on. very recently, or they've been trying to fight it for 20 years now. But it is it does make me feel that I'm doing something when all these people think that reaching out to me is a good idea. Like, who am I, right? Why would they be messaging me? Obviously, they think that the content I'm putting out is useful, which is nice. And I hope that I can empower them to, well, first of all, I try to connect them with other people who might be thinking the same way or live in the same area and things like that, so that they can start to organize and fight back and, show up to the school board meetings and all of that stuff. So hopefully I'm having some effect.
Oh, I'm sure you are. I mean, this is a question I ask myself all the time, as as a writer, and someone who hosts a show for True North. That am I making a difference at the end of the day? Have I managed to convince someone, or someone sitting on the fence, or someone who disagrees with me? Are they engaged in this debate, or are we all just like living in our own echo chambers? And I would not want the latter. I would want the former. I would rather be challenged than and get people to engage with the ideas. I would definitely not want to live in an echo chamber. But given how polarized these things have become, it's hard not to think that sometimes you do live in an echo chamber. And definitely, and one of the things that I'm trying to do is trying to force conversations, or, well, I shouldn't say force because that would be highly illiberal, but I'm trying to encourage people to engage with these issues, and of course the bread and butter issues are obviously very important too, but this is about our future. This is about the school system. This is about a lot of things that affect us, whether you have kids or not, whether it doesn't matter. Society at the end of the day is going to ultimately face consequences as a result. And so you talked about showing up for school board meetings. So those of us who do want to get engaged with this, how and disagree with the narrative that is currently prevailing in the country. How do you push back in the public sphere?
Well, I think you need to send letters and make your opinion known to as many people as you can. Just speak the truth in your everyday life too. Like, I think people underestimate that to a large degree. They think they can speak on Twitter with an anonymous name or something. That doesn't. I mean, it might contribute overall to the ideas that are out there, but it's really important to start speaking the truth in your everyday life, even just little things. I think people self-censor so much because they're scared of losing a friendship or something like that. And I would argue that if that friendship is that fragile that it can be obliterated by you just speaking your mind, maybe it's not that good of a friendship to begin with. I mean, or maybe if you could bring it up in a way that isn't so polarizing, that you're kind of looking for nuance and not looking to just like attack the other person, maybe you can actually change someone's mind or at least find common ground. So yeah, speaking the truth. And I think one of the most important things is to get involved in school board elections, run for trustee, vote for a trustee, support a trustee candidate, make a donation to them, or volunteer to go door to door. It's super important. And the next elections are going to be in 2026. So we have about 3 years and a bit to prepare. So hopefully by then we have a really strong slate of candidates who can take over the school board and bring some common sense there again and say, look, we want to focus on education. We're done with all this stuff. We're done with racist math and white supremacist I don't know, phys ed. We're just done with it. We just want normal stuff.
Yeah. I mean, woke math. Like, I sometimes feel like we live in this bizarre world. It really is clown world. I mean, if you really want to put it in those terms. And I think I would also add to what you're saying that more importantly, I think people also pay attention to what you're saying, and follow you on Twitter and and look at what you've been saying. And I think that would it would definitely add that to your list, Chanel. So I'm going to add that to the list. It's been a year since you were suspended. Looking back, I'm going to guess, but I think the answer to this is that you stand by your decision. But I'm going to ask you anyway: do you stand by the decision to speak out? And what does the future hold for you?
Yeah, it's actually been 2 years since the suspension already,
Oh,
which is
yes.
hard to believe. It's been a really long time now. But yeah, of course I stand by it. I think even that night when I made the comment and I hadn't gotten the backlash yet, I hadn't gotten that letter. I remember I put the comment there. I kind of stressed out a little bit. I went for a walk with my dog. I called my dad and I was like, I might have just screwed up my career. I'm not sure, but here's what I said. And if all goes really terribly, like, can I move in with you? I was kind of being hyperbolic a little bit, but he said, all right, well, if something happens, we'll deal with it. And that was a big stress reliever. It was like, okay, at least he's not mad at me if something happens, I mean, I'm happy with the comment I made and I stand by it. I think we have so much to lose in this. Our whole society pretty much could be lost. I don't want to be too, I don't want to exaggerate too much, but I really do see it like that. If we lose our ability to speak freely, then how can we have an operating democracy? We just can't. A democracy can't function without free speech. So hopefully, if I was able to open a few eyes with what happened and maybe even inspire some other people to speak up too, then it was worth it. And the first time I was investigated by my board, I sat there for a month. I didn't talk to anyone about it really, other than my family, and it was really isolating and stressful. And the year after, when I was investigated again, that's when I decided, enough was enough, and I didn't want to be bullied anymore. I was just so tired of it, so tired of that feeling of being alone in this. So, yeah, there was an evolution, right? I didn't start off being this boisterous, like I'm going to say what I want and stand there on my own and take all the criticism. It was, you get stronger as it goes, right? There's a progression. You start by saying one thing and then you get some criticism, but you also get stronger, and then you say the next thing. And then now I'm at a point where I don't really self-censor at all, and it feels really good. And I recommend it. Like, we need to use our free speech if we're going to protect it. That's the best way to protect free speech is speak freely. So if you want to do your part, do that, and that'll be good.
Yeah, and also courage, just the courage which you have in spades. You stuck your neck out, and you risk losing everything really, and you've lost a lot, but you've also gained a lot in the process as well. You have a whole community of people who support you and who laud you for your courage, and you really are a role model to a lot of people out there, and including me. So, so yeah, no, it was great to have you here, Chanel. That brings us to the end of this discussion, but I really wish you all the best, and I hope to have you back here sometime soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.